The following program is rated TV MA-LSV. It contains strong language, sexual situations, and violence. It is intended only for mature audiences.
I got the business in the front and party in the back. Whenever I pass by, I give women heart attacks. I don't gotta work out, I let the mullet flex, no stress. The follicle fountain's in full effect. Word to my boy Riff, word to my man Theo. My lady broke up with me cause she's sick of my damn ego. If you don't like my mullet, I don't want you anyway. Now she's all up in my DMs and texting me every day cause she misses it. Used to say I look ridiculous, but now she envisions it on other dudes when they're hitting it. She's got a broken heart and nothing to fix it with, and I got a sore scalp from other chicks that are gripping it. When I got my hair cut, the barber said sure, and she started buzzing with a wide smile. And when she got done and I was walking out the door, said it's more than a hairdo, it's a lifestyle. My mullet, my mullet, it's my mullet. I really don't think you...
Greetings and beatings to all my follow fanatics across the world, and welcome to Mac the Mullet Show. I'm your host with the most, the man with the luscious Louisiana love locks himself, Mac the Mullet, my co-host Connor McKenna, and we have a special guest this evening joining us. A legend traveled all over the world many times over, beating many Russians down in wrestling to fighting the Gracie killer Mullet Ishmael for 30 minutes in Russia. Also the founder of one of the best fight squads in the Midwest and the world at the time, Team Wolfpack. Welcome, Iron Bear Gary Myers, baby. Welcome. How
What's
you doing
up, guys?
gentlemen?
What's up, Gary?
How you doing?
How you guys doing?
Good. Not too shabby.
All the way from Sunnyside, Florida. We're here to induct Tom Erickson in the Hall of Fame of Wrestling.
Awesome. You want to give us a little? I heard you're the AAU president now of wrestling.
I am the director of AAU Hall of Fame, and I decide who goes into the Hall of Fame. And when they voted me in last October, the first name I came up with was Tom Erickson. And another Indiana guy, some people, old schoolers might remember, is James Tannehill, 13-time national champion of wrestling.
Legend.
So I'm here to induct all these guys.
Awesome. Badass. So what's it feel like I know that Tom Erickson's one of your really good friends. What's it feel like being able to induct him? Because you guys have many trips together and been together for years wrestling, fighting. Way back. How's it feel? Does it feel surreal?
I'll tell you this. It's a relief. I'm here. I've invited Jacob Boo here, the Kokomo High School wrestling coach who wrestled under Erickson at Purdue. He's sitting to my right. I've invited him here to introduce him into the Hall of Fame. Now, I did that because I know Tom Erickson one way, but I wanted somebody that's trained with him, under him, and actually had to train with him for fights and let him introduce him. I felt that was only fair. I've known Tom Erickson since 1986. I believed in him all the way back then. I said he was special. And we're at the same tournament in Missouri. So Jacob Boo had the great opportunity to wrestle under him and also train under him for fights. And I thought only fitting that I'd drive him down here to Florida. And I let him have his words with Tom and introduce him. And listen, there's only one time you get an introduction to the AAU Hall of Fame. And this is it. This is relief for Tom, me, Jacob Boo, that Tom is actually going to be recognized and enshrined into the Hall of Fame.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's such an honor.
It's a huge honor. AAU wrestling's been around 130 years, to my knowledge.
Sounds about right, too.
And not everybody gets in. And I'll tell you, when they voted me in last October, I won with a vote of 16-15 to be the new director of AAU Hall of Fame. And like I said, the first person that came to mind, Tom Erickson, the big cat.
Hell yeah.
All right, sticking on the subject of wrestling, would you mind giving us a little? I heard you took a trip back to in Russia back in 1990, and you was wrestling against the Soviet Union. And I heard you got some pretty good stories. Why don't you give me a little background story on what happened with you and one of the Russians you were going to wrestle before the match?
Yeah, so let's go back a little bit. 3 months before June, I got a call. Said the guy who was supposed to wrestle in Russia can't make it. Got hurt, something, I don't know. Gary, would you step in? And I knew that I was like, when is the date? And, obviously I was honored. 3 months. I go, man, I can do this. So this is 1990, and I'm probably around 7 years after high school. I'm about 25. And so I went to work, and I studied a lot of film. And I put my body through things you couldn't imagine. I mean, even before bed, I was doing a Stairmaster for an hour straight, full blast. This before I went to bed after an 8-hour day training. I knew from watching films that those guys get tired in the second period, there's 2-3 minute periods. I knew that they come out quick, hard, and fast. If you can't stay with them that first 3 minutes, you're done. You're not gonna
Front runners.
So I said to myself, be in the greatest shape you can be and withstand the storm. So, and I don't have the name in front of me, but the Soviet
Alexander
champion,
Markov. Alexander Markov.
So he came out, and it was just it's Greco. It's just a flurry of pummeling. And I can do that stuff in my sleep today. I still try to teach pummeling to my kids at Hamilton Heights, and they don't get it. So I withstood the storm, and then the break come. We were tied 0-0 first period, I think. I ended up winning in overtime. So we get the second period, which is the final period. We leave there, and I'm not sure 1-1 or something, or we go into overtime. I just knew we were tied. Like 1-1 or something. And they said, hey, we're not going to do overtime. We're not going to do. And I said, I didn't fly halfway across the world to have this be it. And I wouldn't leave them. I stood there, and then I'm wrestling 198 pounds. I just stood there. I go, I'm not leaving. We're going to wrestle this out. I didn't fly clear here not to let this happen. And I know there's a little background story of what he did to me before that. But we went 5 overtimes before I finally beat him. And what the story was before that, at weigh-ins, he goes, I'm getting that jacket. It was my USA Wrestling jacket. And up until that time, I hadn't really fully grasped what I was, what my role there was. There's a lot of pressure on my shoulders. I'm representing the USA Wrestling team, and I've got my collars on, and
there it
he
is.
says he's taking my jacket afterwards. And you guys had asked how we communicate, but their English is not bad. I mean, I don't know anything about Russian English or Russian dialogue, but their dialogue was not bad. These guys travel a lot around the world. But he just kept pointing at my jacket. I'm getting that and putting it on my wall. And then it clicked in my mind. Like, that ain't happening. And that's when my mind went to work. If he had not said that, I'm pretty sure I got beat that day. I know I trained hard, but I wasn't totally convinced yet until he said he wants my jacket. So all during the match, I'm like, I'm not giving an inch. I'm not giving an inch until we got to overtime, and I forced an overtime. They wanted to call it a draw. I go, no, that's not happening. No way. I'm leaving here. So I ended up getting the takedown with a baseball headlock in the 5th overtime. But there's an article, and I have it on my phone. I wish I'd have prepared it for here, but it said I almost caused an international incident because I wouldn't stop wrestling. I go, no, we're going to keep going until somebody scores. And I ended up hitting a baseball headlock, and our Olympic gold medalist in '84, and I can't remember his name now.
Golar, was it Daryl Golar? No,
Daryl was actually a great wrestler, national champ. Steve Frazier, Olympic gold medalist, '84, And he has this baseball headlock that I perfected. I took to college with me and became an All-American. And I hit the Russian with that, put him on his back, and the match is over. But I snatched his jacket up, as which you showed the picture. I still have the jacket to this day, and it's still a picture jacket I take when I give out speeches. I pull out my United States jacket. I go, the Russian one on my jacket. And then I reach under the podium and pull out that jacket and go, but I got his. And then I usually get a big eruption or whatever in the crowd. But I was not leaving there until I won. And
So
that's some straight up American shit.
Yeah. And, I came there knowing I wanted to win, but until he challenged who we were as Americans, maybe I wouldn't have won. But it was a turning point in my life. I sunk my heels in and said, not today. Ain't happening today.
All right, that brings me to my next topic. You were part of the very first there was very few, but Extreme Fighting Battlecade 1. And when it was scheduled to be in Brooklyn, New York. Do you mind giving us a little background about like what happened? Did you have any how it got? A lot of people not be familiar that it was illegal to fight. There was no sanctioning body in New York, and pretty much they swarmed the event and they had to move it overnight. So would you like to give us some backstory on that?
I'm at the St. Moritz Hotel, and I do a press conference with all the legends. The Gracies. Conan, all these Lewis, all these guys, and we're doing this press conference. Middle of the night, about midnight, they go, hey, we got to get on a private plane. You got to leave all your trainers, your cornerman behind. They'll take a bus to the event. It was in Wilmington, North Carolina. The governor, and I'm pretty sure it was Cuomo, kicked us out of New York at midnight.
The night before.
And so we were going to fight at an armory. And I'm at the famous St. Moritz Hotel, ran through Central Park with Danny Gent. We're training, running. I'm with Tom Harper, Scott Odell, and Ron Johnson. And I felt bad for them because they put me on a private jet, flew me down to Wilmington, North Carolina, and those guys had to take a bus with the Brazilians. And they were so mad, my cornerman, because they were like, these guys are constantly wanting to stop this, that, and the other. It's all about them. And then, well, I get there because we got to fight the next night. But Cuomo kicked everybody out of New York and said this is blood sport, this, that, and the other. So that's how we ended up in Wilmington, North Carolina, where they filmed in a studio where they filmed Bloodsport with Stallone,
Van Damme, with Jean-Claude Van Damme, and that was based on Frank Duke's BS.
Yeah,
that brings me to you fought.
But it turned out to be great because the lineup smashed up. I fight the world kickboxing champion, Tommy Glanville, and rest in peace. He's no longer with us.
Blonde hair. He's a big boy. He looked like
big boy.
Like Kiefer. It looked like a big juicy Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah. And everybody's. I only weighed. I don't think they said I weighed 228. I only weighed 214 for those two heavyweight matches. And nice little studio. I got my own private room. And Mr. T hung out with me the whole time. We had dinner together, hung out in my room together. Mr. T uniforms when he's interviewing me, he buys an outfit from Kmart, like a safari outfit. But he talked nothing but, he had 7 brothers and sisters, talked nothing about them and their religion. But he interviewed me after my fight, my first fight. But we hung out with him the whole time, had dinner with Mr. T and everything. But yeah, we were kicked out of New York. And I was tired. If you watch the final fight with Conan, I put him on his back. They stopped the fight, but in the rules meeting, they said, hey, if you're cut, it's over. Like, if you're bleeding, it's over. Well, I cut his eye open. They started us back up, and I got to tell you, after flying out in the middle of the night, look, we're all succumbed to the same problems. We all flew out together. I just had to be a little bit more tired. And he was on his back because they started us back on our feet. And then I didn't realize for 20-some years later that, man, they should have started us back in the same position. They broke us up. I should have stayed on top. He'd have never got up, period.
Yeah. Period.
And I didn't know jiu-jitsu. I don't know lick of jiu-jitsu. Not anything. And I'm wearing him out on top. I cut his eye open. But if they'd have put us back on top, he'd never got up. But I'm back on my feet. I'm tired. I take a half-ass shot. He gets the front choke, and I don't know how to get out of it then. I know how to get out of it now, but not then. So I tapped, and John Petty came back to the room and said, hey, I said, look, you going to bring me back? He goes, oh, absolutely, I'm going to bring you back. He never brought me back until Battlecade 4 when I fought. So I drive to Iowa to fight Battlecade 4. He puts me against Tommy Glanville again, and I'm pissed. I'm just like, I don't want to fight the guy I just demolished.
Yeah.
And and that was the last show of Battlecade 4. So I fight Tommy Glanville again. He stumbles and falls. I get on top and pound him a little bit, but that fight ends in a draw because there's no judges back then. But we could hear John Petty talking shit about us. So we kind of both shut down that second, third period. We didn't do anything because I could hear him talking shit about us. And that's the God's honest truth. I don't think I said to this day, and I've talked to Petty a bunch of times, but just so he knows, we stopped fighting in the middle of that fight because he was talking so much shit. And that fight went to a draw, and I don't care. They paid us shit money, and he got a shit performance for it. That's fine with me.
I gotta give you a little. I gotta tell you a little story. Well, a lot of who might not know, for if you've been sleeping under a rock, if you're an MMA fan, Iron Bear, he's fought many world champions. He fought Carlos Barreto at one time, was the #1 ranked heavyweight in the planet.
On 10 days' notice.
10 days notice. Wallet
and
Ismail,
I've been drinking for 4 months.
Wallet Ismail in Russia for, what was it, 30 minutes in a ring?
Yeah, and I was in shape for that fight, but did you ever hear what they did to me at the weigh-ins?
Made you cut weight. That
Twice.
Me and Chaz.
I flew 17 hours with no water, no food, and I cut 37 pounds. I get over there, weigh in. They go, oh, Wallet didn't see you weigh in. I go, well, he didn't show up at the weigh-ins. They called me about 7 o'clock. You need to get back down here and weigh in. I'm already eating quarter pounds of cheese, drinking milk because the food over where I was around wasn't really available. So I'm eating junk. I'm already 10 pounds over an hour later. And I had to go back down and thank God Daryl Golar, our Roman national champ who was in that show, he put me in a sauna, put me on a bike, put a towel around me, turned on the showers. And by 10 o'clock at night, I finally made it again. But if it wasn't Daryl Golar, it wouldn't happen. And you know what happened in the end? He never showed up for the 10 o'clock weigh-ins. He didn't show up my first weigh-in. I cut weight again. He doesn't show up for the 10 o'clock weigh-ins. And I told the promoter, I go, here's the deal. You see I've made weight. I go, he's not here. I won't make weight again. And my legs, I fought 30 minutes. Nothing really eventful happened in that fight. I stuffed all his shots, but my legs were rubber. You imagine starving for a week or so in the end, after losing 30-some pounds, to make weight, go eat,
jet lag,
then cut it all again in the sauna on a bike with a blanket over you, and showers running, and Daryl Golar yelling in your damn ear for 3 hours. And so the next night I get out there, dude, and my legs are fried. It's all I could do. I heard Chaz Bowling and our other fighter in the corner talking to the TV. They go, what's his game plan? I go, well, he's going to wait for 5 minutes, and then he's going to mount his comeback. 25 minutes go by. Dude, I'm tired, man. We've been in a locked up position for 25 minutes, and I've tried to headbutt him on his feet and everything, but I'm just tired, man. I mean, my legs were rubber. So he won a decision. I cut him open with one headbutt, but it just is one of those things that it's the games that are played around the world. I mean, I can tell you fights of me in Japan and Russia, just the different games, and they know that you need to get paid. So you'll do about anything they say because you've already trained and flown there, and you will acquiesce about anything because you need to get paid.
Exactly. Now send a couple
that.
girls to your room. Sending girls to your room the night before sometimes. I've
Yeah,
heard all kinds of
distract
stories. Trying to get you drunk, getting fighters drunk, especially over in Japan. I don't want to.
Hey, in Russia, they'll send girls up one at a time all night long until you're exhausted. And go ahead.
For those who didn't know, we was referring to, he fought in Russia with his legs dead, was Wallet Ismail. He was the Gracie killer. He'd beat Hoist, Henzo, Half Great. He smashed them all. He was actually.
Who were you talking about?
when you fought Ishmael, he was the Gracie killer. He'd beat
Yeah, but
Manzo,
who from America was the Gracie killer?
that was Travis Alex Stiebling beat freaking
Now,
Alex, not Alex Stiebling, but
it is Alex Stiebling.
Yeah.
No, it
Stiebling
is
was
Alex Stiebling. He beat about 4 or 5 in a row. But you know how he got that gig? It was kind of like after 9/11, and I refused to fly to Venezuela. Alex got on the plane, and instead of me, I just said, Alex, you can fly. I'm not flying. I don't trust anybody. Alex went over and won that 4-man tourney. Awesome for him. Then he went over to Pride, won about 4, 5, 6 in a row against the Brazilians. They called him Brazilian killer. And so that's how he got his start.
Got head kicked.
And
He got head kicked
God
by Andy
bless
Silva. He got cut
Yeah.
really bad by
Yeah,
English
he
when he
got
started.
cut.
Smashed open.
He got cut on the top of his head.
He was a stud, though, man.
But he was running through him. I mean, he beat Felicia Ismail, who I lost to.
Yep.
But I guarantee he wasn't subject to the bullshit I was subject to.
Yeah, especially over in Pancrase. Whenever you had,
I mean, you guys remember Daryl Golar?
Oh yeah, I
beating
remember
that
Daryl
guy
Golar.
so bad in Brazil, blood everywhere. I had to come out in the finals. I'm slipping on the blood. There's so much blood. Daryl Golar, and I can't remember the guy's name. It starts with an M, but he bloodied that guy up, and they gave the other guy a decision. I couldn't believe it, and I had to come out and fight in the finals, and I'm slipping all over the damn place. There's so much blood in the ring. But Daryl Golar was the real deal. The real deal. He had a stroke over Brazil training those guys in wrestling. They got him back to America, but he had a stroke over there. He had an aneurysm.
Wow. Yeah,
he was teaching the Brazilians wrestling.
Yeah, he was also. I remember as a kid watching him on American Gladiators. I was hoping I'd see him toss one of them juice heads on their heads.
Yeah,
I'll never forget it.
Dude, I wrestled 87 nationals, and he won my bracket. And I wrestled guys like Randy Couture and John Morgan from Bloomington, Minnesota, became our Olympian, and he won that tournament, and it was a brutal tournament. He won it. I mean, my hat's off to Daryl Golar, probably one of the best Greco guys in the nation, never made the Olympic team.
Yeah, especially
he was
in America.
A specimen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was. And America's only won like 5 or 6 medals in Greco period in the Olympics. Like that's not our strong suit. And he was not only one of our best guys not to make the Olympic team, but he was going to worlds and making noise every year. And it was just and you get caught in between those world weights and the Olympic weights. There's not as many weights either as there are at the world championships, which I think is crockish, but that's here and there.
Hey, I'm getting ready to induct James Tannehill into the Hall of Fame tomorrow. His roots are at Indiana State, wrestling with Bruce Baumgartner, teaching him. He's, like I said, 12, 13-time national champ, never made the Olympic team, 3-time runner-up at Olympic trials. Tom Erickson, 3-time Olympic alternate. And this Alan Solomon I'm getting ready to induct, there's 3 of them. He was a 3-time Olympic alternate. So I'm inducting Tuesday 3 guys that were in the finals Olympic trials, 3 times never make the team. It's brutal. I mean, you make our Olympic team in America, I mean, you're the man. And it doesn't say anything against the guys that get second, because these guys went on to have prolific careers. I mean, Tom Erickson, I tell you what, probably one of the best fighters ever. People wouldn't fight him. I mean, Kevin Randleman, he 2-time NCAA champion, about killed him. They had to take a gurney to get him out of the Brazil in that IBC fight.
Yep.
Yeah, and his take is nothing but Kevin Randleman. I love that guy. Says Tom Erickson at one time was very special.
Yes, he was.
Different breed.
If you don't mind elaborating, there was also talks whenever Mark Kerr came to the 2000 Grand Prix in Pride, it was in his contract that Tom Erickson was not to be in that tournament. That was part of his contract because he didn't want the smoke. And Randleman, back to the Randleman fight he's referring to, Randleman's shooting in on Tom, and it literally is like a movie. He's bouncing off of him, like he's made and then
brick wall.
And then he hits him with one knee to the liver and the inside short hook and about decapitates him. And that's when Randleman goes on to win the world title later on. Go ahead.
So Tom Erickson was, I mean, this is just a true story. Tom Erickson was called by Coleman and saying, hey, Randleman's got a good thing going on in Brazil. Would you consider not doing this fight? And Tom's like, I mean, this is a true story. Talking to Tom and everything. He's like, hey, I got to make money too, so I'm taking the fight. And but Randleman did have a good thing going on in Brazil. Just won a tournament. He probably could have lasted a long time over there and made a lot of money. But Erickson was broke too, so he made a decision to fight. And you saw what happened. I mean, listen, there's a couple of guys in this world I don't think I want to fight. There's two of them that fought each other. Tom Erickson and Randleman. I don't think I want to fight either one of them. You'd have to pay me a lot of money. I mean, a shit ton of money to fight those two. And thank God I never had to.
The big cat. I'd love to see had MMA been around earlier when he was in his, because a lot of people don't realize he beat Bruce. Didn't he beat Bruce in the in wrestling? Bruce Baumgartner?
He beat Kerry McCoy for the national title. I'm not sure he ever beat
I thought
Bruce.
Oklahoma
I'll tell you
State might
this.
have beat him.
No, let me tell you this. Those guys went into overtime after a 6-minute period. 3 minutes, 1 minute rest, 3 minutes. They went 18 minutes in an overtime, tied 1-1. And they always were 2-2, 2-1, 1-1. And the referees always gave Bruce Baumgartner the nod. Now, I was live to watch a few of those. That was back in my era. But wrestling 18 minutes as a wrestler, that's brutal. That's brutal to win an overtime match that long a time. It's brutal. And that's the longest match they've ever had. But Tom Erickson never got the nod, even though he felt like a few of those he should have got the nod. He didn't get the nod. And those guys wrestled for 11, 12 years. And I tell you this, Tom Erickson is a top 3 wrestler in the world. There's Bruce Baumgartner. It's Gobocheski from Russia. I might be wrong in the name, but it's pretty close. But if Bruce Baumgartner is not there, Tom Erickson, probably 2-3-time gold medalist in the Olympics. But the best
Stephen
guy
Neal
had to be in America.
Stephen Neal as well. He wrestled Stephen Neal, one of the best big men that went on to play for the Patriots.
Yeah, but Tom wrestles. I watched that match. Tom Erickson was a little bit later in the years, and that was a tough match for him because he was getting a little heavier and a little older. But he did win a national title against a fearsome Kerry McCoy, 7-3 in the '96 national championships, and won it.
Threw him all around.
And that's why Tom says, "Don't ever say I'm not a." He goes, "I'm not a quitter." I mean, like his 12th, 13th try, he wins the national title, and he really dominated that match.
Yeah, Kerry McCoy was the world silver medalist.
Yeah, it's one of the films I got. I'm going to introduce Tuesday. That whole match of him and Kerry McCoy wrestling. That's nice. He got on his knees and cried. I mean, it was like, he could have gave up after his 3rd try with Baumgartner, his 5th time with Baumgartner, his 10th time. No, he didn't quit till he won it. That's why he said to me, "Please, if anybody remembers me, remembers that I'm not a quitter."
Resilient.
Yeah.
Well, this time
I'm wearing his shirt right now. If you can see it, Duke University Wrestling. It's got a football on it, but he gives me 3 or 4 shirts every quarter.
What's wild is I remember I was a kid and I went and watched Purdue wrestle Ohio State at the Newcastle Fieldhouse. They actually came and wrestled here in Newcastle, and that was back whenever he was early years of coaching Purdue, and he ended up coaching until 2015 at Purdue. I'd say it was when he went to end up going. He took a head coaching job, and now he's at Duke. But I hated to see him leave Purdue. I loved him at Purdue, man.
Yeah, I mean that wasn't good for Indiana. He went out to Lions College in Arkansas and coached there for 5 years, and then now he's at Duke University. He's been there a couple of years, which I love because I get all kind of gear from him. But Jacob Boo is sitting next to me. Like I said, he wrestled Purdue. He actually got to train under Tom. Actually got to train fight. Hold mids, box with Tom. So that's why I brought him here. I said, "Hey, Jacob, I want somebody that's been in the mix. Not me. Me and Tom are friends. But somebody's had to endure underneath him because that ain't easy." So that's why he's wrote a speech on Tuesday. He'll put him in the Hall of Fame.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things too. Like right now, I lose focus a lot. I know it's going to be hard to be up there reading in front of a lot of people.
Yeah.
So that's going to bring us to our ad for the. We're going to go to our Nerd Focus Fight Fact of the Week, if you don't mind. Give me 2 seconds, and I'm going to let our promotion play. Roll it, David. '20th, 2004, almost exactly 19 years ago to today. Pride Critical Countdown held their 2004 quarterfinal heavyweight Grand Prix at the Saitama Super Arena with 45,000 anxious fans. There were a plethora of legendary moments that evening that stood out on the card, but two stood out among more than the rest. After a back-and-forth slot of savagery between Quentin Rampage Jackson and Ricardo Arona, in an attempt to try, Rona tried to lay up a triangle choke. He was baptized and sent to the depths of despair by Rampage with one of the most brutal KO slams in the history of mixed martial arts that still lives on in highlight reels to this day. This brings me to my second monumental moment whenever Kevin the Monster Randleman took Fedor Emelianenko's back in the scramble, body locking him and taking the last emperor by the waist and slamming him on his head after he inverted him. With a devastating slam, Fedor still proved that he was not quite human after he, in a scramble, got a topside Kimura, submitting Kevin Randleman with one of the most legendary comeback and superhuman feats of strength that I've ever seen. Beautiful. And that'll conclude our fight. That'll conclude our Nerd Focus Fight Fact of the Week, brought to you by Mac the Mullet and Fight World Live. Coach Ironberry, I got a question for you. What's one fight, somebody you always wanted to fight that you never got to, that you would have loved to, that you think would have made a really good fight?
Well, I'll tell you this, and probably nobody knows this. When I fought Tommy Glanville, I was led to believe, and nobody will agree with this, or they'll say it wasn't true, but I was led to believe a battlecade that one day, or that the fight I was getting ready to go fight in, this is why I was so mad. I'm glad you asked the question. Do you remember it's Maurice, who was the battlecade champion,
Maurice
right?
Smith. Maurice Smith.
I was
UFC
led to
champ.
believe early in training that that's who I'd fight. So I've never talked about this. Me and my people I train with, when I got there, they said I'm fighting Tommy Glanville, and I got pissed off. They had led me to believe that would be my fight. And so that's how this whole thing unwind. Tommy Glanville didn't want to fight me. I didn't want to fight him. That had been decided. And then to hear Freddie talk shit about us really sealed the deal. When I got there, now listen, I don't know if I won or lost the fight, but it's a fresh fight for me. It's not a fight I got to repeat with Tommy Glanville. So I was in great shape. I felt good. But I feel like I can beat probably any kickboxer. I mean, it's just my feelings. I'm a wrestler. I'm going to get that takedown. But at that time, that's what I was told. It didn't come true. Probably wasn't even close to true. When I got there, they put me against Tommy Glanville again. And that's when I went, what the hell? And then they told me, you're not getting paid unless you fight Tommy Glanville. Listen to me. I'm a fighter. I never turned down a fight. I got to get paid. So I said, screw it. I stood up, shook Freddie's hand, and I said, I'll see you at Veterans Memorial Coliseum. I was pissed off. But he had led me to believe, or that organization at the time, that I was going to fight Maurice Smith for some reason. But he was fighting Kazumari or whatever his name is.
Yep.
Kazumari, I can't believe it. And he knocked him out, the Japanese guy. But there was some miscommunication in there because all along, so I got there, that's who I thought I was fighting. And I was kind of happy about that because once again, I'm fighting another kickboxer.
Yeah, you're going to dominate.
And nobody, my team, Tom Harper, Shadowdale knows this story. We get there, we're like, what the hell? We're not fighting, Maurice. And nothing against Maurice. He probably didn't even know. He probably knew all along who he's fighting. But I just felt like that's who I was fighting the whole time. And it's been so long ago. That's why I was so pissed off when I had to fight Tommy again. I was pissed. Then when he said, well, you're not getting paid unless you fight him, I thought, this is the fucking waste of time.
He went on to beat Mark Coleman. He's only beat Coleman in the UFC to win the title. Maurice Smith did. And
Maurice Smith beat Coleman.
Yep, took his title.
And you know what I love? When Randy Couture came in, they stalled him a bunch at that fight with
Vitor.
Well, of course, that was with the other Brazilian. What was his name?
Pedro Izzo.
No, yeah.
Pedro Rizzo. Pedro
No.
Rizzo.
The Phenom.
Vitor Belfort.
Yes. He stalled coming out of the trailer, and Randy Couture beat him. That was awesome. But Couture beat Maurice.
Yep.
Just held him down, knees to the head, everything, beat him. Let me tell you something. I had to wrestle Randy Couture in my prime. He's very good. I mean, I just lost to our Olympian, John Morgan from Bloomington, Minnesota, in Schenectady, New York, in the first round, the Greco Nationals. I'm up 14-13, 2 seconds left. I kind of looking for the score. He gut wrenches me. I lose 15-14. You know who my next match was? Randy Couture. And I got my flying lessons for him because he beat me in about a minute. We're in Schenectady, New York, and that guy, I had never been beat like that in Greco. I mean, I'm just losing a match to our Olympian, two-time Olympian, John Morgan from Bloomington, Minnesota. His brothers are Gordy Morgan, and he's an Olympian, and I lose by 1 point. It was a high-scoring Greco match, but I lost to Randy Couture pretty bad that very next 30 minutes later, and I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure Randy out. I mean, I think if I had to say who the best MMA fighter ever, I mean, there's a lot of them, but boy, Randy Couture really gets me narrowed down to a guy that was very versatile.
Yes,
really loved his style. He wrestled for the Army, and he boxed. And a lot of people don't know he had a big boxing background in the Army. He boxed a lot in the Army.
Yes.
And when he's fighting, they're thinking, "Oh, he's not a boxer." No.
America.
Randy knows how to box. In the Army, he boxed. And he's always in great shape. The guy's always better shape than anybody. I mean, just great shape. So my hat's off to him. And he beat me pretty bad, dude. I mean, it was pretty effortlessly. I mean, I just could not figure out how to stop getting thrown by the guy.
I got a good story for you too. It actually involves you. I'd gotten a call from one of my friends, Trent Marlowe, and he had asked me if I wanted to make $500 to go pick up a drum set that one of our friends had just bought from Joey Jordison from Slipknot. Well, it just so happened that those drums were being stored at the Rich Franklin's house. So about 3 hours later, we get there and we walk in, and literally, this isn't the house you've seen. This is Rich after his divorce and such, and he's living in a bachelor pad. And you walk in, and it's pretty cool. He has a Serenity Prayer written on his wall and has a portrait one of his friends had painted of himself on the wall. Well, he goes down and shows us where the drums are, and he's sitting there talking. I look over, and he's fixing his own pipes, like the former heavyweight champ or the middleweight champ of the world down there fixing his own plumbing. We get to talking, and I bring up the subject that he'd fought the founder of my team, one of my idols, Gary Myers, and he looked right at me, and you know what he said? He goes, "You done remember more about my damn career than I did." I said, "Yes." I said, "He was stronger than a son of a bitch until a head kick." He goes, "You know what's funny?" He goes, "I forgot how I even won that fight. So you just said that." And then we ended up talking and stuff, but it was, Rich Franklin, he remembered that. And he told me that I remembered more about his fight career than he did. It was, so I got to pick up the damn Slipknot's drum set and get paid. That's a story that somebody don't think they're going to believe, but it happened, and it was awesome.
That's fucking wild.
He said you were stronger as shit.
Yeah, so I fought Rich. I had a good training camp. I mean, the match was put together. I was supposed to fight Dodd from Florida, Richard Dodd.
Mm-hmm.
And he was jiu-jitsu guy, was doing good on the scene. And that's who I thought I was fighting. Next thing I know, he pulls out. I talked to him later in life because, Gary, I just couldn't do it. They put Rich Franklin. Listen, I never turned down a fight in my life. To this day, and to back when I was born, I never turned down a fight.
Prime Rich, too. Young Prime Rich.
I took the Rich Franklin fight with a torn groin muscle. A month before I was fighting, I had a great camp. I'm running sprints with Todd Moore at Muncie Central High School, and I'm running, tore my groin. So I got a month going, how do I train with torn groin muscle? Now, you got to understand, they paid me a lot of money, so I'm like, I'm not backing out of this fight. I need the money.
Oh, yeah.
So if you watch the whole fight, I try to do a double overthrow, and I don't get it. But I never shot once. I'm out there going, if you look at the third period before the third period starts, I'm trying to shake out my leg because I am in so much pain, and that's no excuse. Rich beat me. But I should have never took the fight. I should have just, a lot of these guys these days can back out of fights, turn down fights. That's not how it was when I was in the mix. You turn down a fight, you might not get another fight for a year. So you took every fight. And I fought him with a torn groin muscle that I had no business taking that fight. But it is what it is. I took the fight, lost legitimately. The only thing was my discrepancy was in the rules meeting, they said, hey, you're going to get a standing 8 count if you get knocked down. Well, I stood right back up. You can watch the tape. It doesn't lie. They go, it's over. I go, wait a minute. I got a standing 8 count. Nope, it's over. I go, that's bullshit. Listen, I wasn't going to win that fight. I was already down 2-0.
Give you your pride.
It was a minute left, though. You still
give you your pride.
Yeah, so 59 seconds left was like, I'm going to finish this fight. I don't have a mark on me. I just was like, you promised an 8 count. I'm finishing this fight. That's how I am. I got in a fight in Hawaii, and the guy hit me at Bladesdale Arena. My eye kind of swelled up. They stopped the fight. I go, listen to me. I'm a professional fighter. You better call me out on my back. Not because I get a swollen eye. I'm not cut, nothing. I was pissed. I've lost a fight in Hawaii, and I can't grasp that. Like, look, I'm a professional fighter. I'll know when I need to tap, but I don't want to leave it in a ref's hand because I got a black eye. I got a good black eye. That's ridiculous. But I went on my back. I want to go out on my back. If I'm going to lose, I'm going out on my back.
Yep, I agree.
So,
you don't train that hard not to just walk away. You got to go out on your back.
Yeah, you put it all out there.
That's right.
I wish I could ask you 100 questions, but like a lot of people don't understand. Like back in the day, whenever you were being interviewed by Mr. T, my favorite parts whenever he asked you what you used on him, you looked at him like you was stupid. You said double leg takedown. Like what the hell you think it's called? Well, then your manager starts yelling for you, Gary, and you apologize and say apologize for my manager Phyllis Lee. You know what I mean? Yeah. Phyllis Lee, she was Dean Malenko's stepmother. Wasn't she? She was managed you, Dan Severn, and many pro wrestlers. Would you like to give a little? A lot of people don't know that there was a woman that used to manage. She was meaner than most of the men back then. She was Phyllis Lee.
Listen, Phyllis Lee, she was back in the old days when there was a professional women's wrestler named Murdoch. I don't know if anybody remembers that. But, yeah, Malenko was a guy. I think Malenko was a guy she's married to. But listen, here's how I got started in fighting. God's honest truth. Dan Payne I wrestled for Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University and was an All-American. And Dan Payne, I'm talking to him, and he goes, Gary, you get a lot of fights in bars, this, that, and the other. And he showed me a tape of Hoist Gracie and UFC 1. He goes, you think you can do this? I go, hell yeah, I can do that. I can beat Hoist Gracie. I'm just telling you, the guy had no takedowns, nothing. I go, I'm a lot meaner than all these guys. So they call Dan Severn's brother, who wrestled for Arizona State. He gives Dan Payne the number to Dan Severn. So my coach calls Dan Severn, and Dan goes, look, you got to call Phyllis Lee, my manager. She's out of Ohio. So I got to meet her. So my coach makes all this happen, and I got to meet her at a cafe in northern Indiana. She sits down. My wife is my God's honest witness. She's got a friend named Judy who's still alive. Phyllis has passed away. She looks at me and says, hey, you think you could kill somebody in the ring? And I dead looked her in the face. I said, absolutely. And from then on, that was when I went straight to Battle Cave within a couple weeks. But, I mean, this is the truth. I don't know why she asked me if I can kill somebody in the ring. Absolutely. If I'm in the ring and I'm fighting, I'm going to do whatever it takes to win. And I don't care what that end result is. That's back in 94, 95, right? It's not today's
brutal
thing.
Brutal back then.
Yeah, it's not today's, these guys are really great athletes now. Like, they've trained in everything. They're in great shape. It's not like back when I was. Like Tank Abbott, that dude, he was kind of not very good for me because he would go out and party all the time and go fight. I thought, hell, I could do that. I'm good at that. And so sometimes my training wasn't top-notch because Tank can do it, I can do it, right? That's just the God's honest truth. Yeah. But just a couple weeks later, I'm fighting on pay-per-view. I don't know jiu-jitsu. I don't know boxing. I'm just a former Greco-Roman wrestling, a collegiate wrestler, was an All-American, and I fought a lot. I mean, most people say I probably have more than 700 street fights, but I fought a lot, and it was just a natural progression for me. And I always tell people, it was natural for me to go on pay-per-view. I didn't know anything, and I didn't fear shit. And you saw the first night I'm on pay-per-view how that turned out.
Yep. And my
father was a three-time war veteran, 32 years in the military, him beating the shit out of me all my life, and my brother's beating the shit out of me. I didn't fear much. I mean, it better be God coming down because I didn't fear shit.
That's right.
I'll tell you right. Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to tell you. I heard that you used to have some luscious love locks yourself like this. One of my dad's real good friends wrestled for Delta back in the day. They called him Pee Wee, but he was younger than you. But he said that he was young, and you'd go to the damn Muncie Fair and you get that hair wet and you'd whip that hair back. You said all the dudes scattered and the ladies clamored.
Man, I can't tell you. I did have a, what do you call it? Mullet? What do you call that?
No, that's all. And I used
to get in a lot of fights outside that fairgrounds, and I really enjoyed myself. I mean, listen, it was a product of growing up, but most people you could talk to in Muncie would tell you they'd seen me in so many fights, and I don't know why. I was just very aggressive. I didn't take no shit from nobody, and I'm not proud of that. That was my life back then, growing up across the street from the projects. But every day I was fighting for something just to protect myself. And my brothers were beating the crap out of me all the time. And my father was not far behind them. So me getting on pay-per-view, I'm telling you, it wasn't luck, maybe getting on paper, but it was just a natural progression for me because I had all this stuff inside me from being abused all my life that I sought it out. I sought out the abuse. I sought out wanting more of it, but I wanted to give it back.
Give it back while you take it in.
Yeah.
I feel that.
I got tired of taking it. One time, my brothers locked me in a room with my brother Brian. He's 2 years older than me. He's a big dude. If I showed you a picture, you wouldn't believe it. But they locked me in a room, and I said, I'm 16 years old. He's about 18. I had enough. I hit him pretty hard. And so my brothers never messed with me. So then when I started wrestling professionally in 1993, just for the fall. And my brother Donnie, who had been beating on me for years, he's 7 years older than me, came into where I had this professional wrestling gym on Walnut. And my buddy Charlie Thomas had been shot in a groin. He says, "You need to get to the hospital." I was like, "Hey."
You guys didn't by any chance see a cell phone here, did you?
No, this is
okay.
Sorry.
I appreciate it.
So he comes in, calls me every name in the book because I won't go to the hospital. I go, "Look, I'm drunk." And Charlie Thomas, I grew up with since kindergarten. I'm not going to go to the hospital. He'd been shot. I'm not going to go there drunk. That family doesn't mean like that. But my brother Donnie, true story, calls me every name in the book, finally calls me a pussy. I stood up, and I hit him as hard as I could, and it broke his leg. It turned his body so quickly. Oh, it broke his leg and shit. My dad had taken him to the hospital, but I had been beat up enough, and I'd had enough. And it just so happened in 1994, my coach recognized how my life was. I put in Hoist Gracie and UFC 1 and said, "Dude, can you do this?" I go, "Absolutely. I can beat anybody in there." Now, that was just my feelings at the time. And so when you see me, I know nothing. When you see me in the first battlecade, I don't know jiu-jitsu. I don't know boxing. Yeah. I'm just a street fighter that was a pretty damn good wrestler. And, I mean, look, what about Tommy Glanville? He has me in a triangle and doesn't choke me out. I'm not even know what the hell I'm in.
Yeah.
We don't like geometry.
Fight, I'm in a triangle the whole time.
Yep, and then you end up getting out, smashing with headbutts and strangling him. Yeah. That brings me to this next thing. What I want to talk about is a lot of people don't realize is where Gary's from in Muncie and where I'm from, Newcastle and Muncie, they're in counties side by side. Between those two little small places, Connor, we've had over 30 guys turn professional in fighting. Gary led the way, and when he started Team Wolfpack, we ended up having generations to come. We ended up with myself, Jaggers, Bass, Lapsley, Bubba McDaniel, Stout. We've had guys in every major organization, and it was because we seen that Gary could do it from a little small town. We could do it. Nope.
Hey, listen. There's a couple stories that are awesome. I mean, like, do you know how Stout got started?
Yeah, when Phyllis brought him to you down in Indianapolis, and you was 19 years old, and he got in a street fight, and I'll never forget that. You told me that when I was 18 years old. So they wrote a book
about it, right? When we were bouncers. So I was bouncing at a club. So they brought Ryan Stout to me. He was 18, maybe 17.
And for those who don't know Stout, he's fought Matt Hughes to a draw as an amateur, fought freaking Demi Amaya, beat Melvin Gillard, stud. But he's going to preface that. Go ahead, Gary. Sorry.
So this guy comes to my bar, and I'm a real estate agent, and I sell new construction homes for a builder, and they're very wealthy people. They send their daughters to the bar. I'm supposed to be entertaining them. This black guy comes in from Southport High School, 230 pounds, at least 6 foot tall. Says, I want to fight you. They had a wad of money. I go, I ain't fighting. I'm not getting in trouble in front of my owner's daughters and something happened. I said, but I'll tell you what, Ryan Stout here. I'd never seen Ryan in my life. He shows up at the bar because Phyllis Lee sent him there. I go, Ryan will fight you. And I'm like, and I made it happen. Lots of money. We went out back. I even put a picture on my Facebook of that alley. We went through the kitchen of the bar. We went outside, and I reffed the fight. I don't even know if Ryan can fight. I don't know shit about him, but this brother was huge, and he was ragdolling Ryan. Finally, when Ryan was on his back in the concrete, I said, Ryan, and I don't want to interfere. I'm reffing, but I said, you better get that guard working and get that arm bar. Son of a bitch, if it wasn't a minute or two later, he got that popping, hit that arm bar, and that guy was screaming, crying. We stopped the fight. I said, he goes, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. I said, you got beat. You screamed like a bitch. You tapped out. Give me the money. And I jerked it out of his buddy's hand. I paid the guy that put up the money. I paid Ryan some money, and I kept the rest. And that's how Ryan started, but it doesn't end there. We get inside. This is the truth. It's in the book. We go inside. There's this concoction called the Purple Hooters. It's vodka and some grape juice, some bullshit. It's very harsh. He's drinking. And I tell one of my best girls working at that bar, take Ryan home, take care of him. She did. So here's a guy that she sent me, never been in a fight, never been drunk, and never got laid. I did all those in about a couple hours. Got them all covered. And that's how I roll.
And the best part was Ryan Stout, the pride of Piqua, Ohio. He ended up going on the train with the Hammer House. He was he had Prime Coleman and Randleman ragdolling him around. But he was a stud. And I remember he'd come down and train with us at Wolfpack, and I was 17. Chaz and my other buddy Ryan brought me to work out with him. And I was thinking, this guy's easy to take down. Well, I didn't realize I was going to be armbarred every time before I hit the mat. He welcomed it, but he's a stud. And he's a good
we trained for 10 years. And he could tap everybody. Jason Gotts, everybody. He never tapped me. And I'm not sure if this is the 10th year in, but he finally got me in a
leg lock,
kind of an armbar choke. And I tapped. But you realize we haven't rolled since that day. Like, he got to that point after 10 years and said, I'm done. Like, we used to train all the time. He could never tap me, never. And he goes, dude, you're the hardest dude. He goes, I cannot tap you. But one day I got a little lazy after 10 friggin' years, and he got it. I acknowledged, but I haven't seen him on the mat with me since. Like, he's like, fuck it, I got it, I'm out.
Yeah, he won that. He won that one time. He's never coming back.
I used to punish him and Jason Gilliam. I punished those guys.
Yes, and the thing is we're talking about Stout. I watched him down in Louisiana. 30 seconds. Melvin Gallard's the next big hot shot right before he got on Ultimate Fighter, knocking everybody out. And he thought he was cute because he was a good wrestler for Louisiana, anyways, where he's from. But he took down Stout. Put this way, his arm was 3 different directions. His arm was thrown up west side by the time he was tapping. His ass had a cast down there at Mardi Gras. He broke him off. But Stout to this day, Baki, he's 40. He's almost pushing 50, and he's a shredded athlete, still just a genetic freak. Fought Jake Ellenberger, fought everybody. Stud. He's an OG, too. I remember stories about him up at Ball State when there was a lineman, like 300-pound lineman, he put in a leg lock, Ramirez, and he snapped his ankle. And Pickle was yelling, Ramirez!
You remember Brian Rainey, right?
Oh, yeah, Brian Rainey, Newcastle.
I got him in that fight. So I'm the main event. So I got Brian Rainey in that fight in Brazil. And he went down there. I mean, he had a good showing. I couldn't believe. I mean, I'm not sure how to end it, but they kind of ripped him off. But Brian Rainey, on a bonus, I said, you got to take Brian Rainey with me. Me and Chaz Bowling, I called Chaz last minute. And that's when Chaz kind of got on the international scene because Phyllis Lee goes, I can't go. Do you want somebody else to go with you? And she had a history of sending me to Japan, Brazil, Russia with no fucking corner. And I said, I want Chaz to go with me this time. So Chaz went to Brazil with me, and we got Brian Rainey in the show. I go, but I'm not going without Brian Rainey in this little lightweight tournament. Probably the best lightweight tournament in the history of Brazil, probably the world. Pele was in it.
Yeah,
Del Golar.
He fought Patino. He fought Jorge Patino Pereira. That's who Brian Rainey fought. He was the champion of IBC. He beat Landy Johns later on. Him and Landy Johns that's who Rainey fought that night was Jorge Pereira. That's who it was. Saint Patino.
Man,
he's a stud.
I'll tell you this. I got more stories you can think about. I mean, we could sit here till in the morning, and I could tell you more stories about different nuances, things we've done. I mean,
I'm gonna have you back on. I guarantee you.
How about John Lober getting into it at Monty Cox's show, and they're in a hotel room, and John Lober bites a guy damn near face off. And we go to the hotel, we go to the breakfast place the next day, and everybody, it's very somber. We're like at a Denny's or something, and this fight had happened in a hotel room, and I wasn't there. Monty Cox tells this story very well, but we're all sitting there. I think this fight's going to break out again, and this is before all this gloves and it's just raw fighting. This is like 96, 7. I mean, this whole restaurant in the morning is going to erupt, but John Lober was a no-nonsense guy, and he'd fight you at a drop of a hat anywhere.
Beat Frank Shamrock.
I think he about bit that guy's face off of Monty Cox's camp. I mean, he had a chunk.
Yeah. He beat Frank. He was the one to beat Frank Shamrock in Super Brawl back in the day.
Yeah, in Hawaii.
Kevin Jackson ended up beating him. That's how
he kicked Shamrock through the ropes.
Yeah,
he was a dog.
It's funny. I feel bad now, but I don't remember Frank. He came up to me at Battle Cave 4 and said, "Hey, Bear, how you doing?" He goes, "Remember we got drunk, this and that." And I go, "Frank, I don't know who the hell you are." I did know who he was. I'm like, how did we ever party? I don't remember you. I feel bad to this day, but I don't remember drinking with him, but he swears I'm down. We were drinking together, and I was going to fight, so my mind was somewhere else.
Yeah,
but I feel bad about that. Maybe we did get drunk together. I bet he. But I'm coming off Battlecade. I just don't remember him with me. But just think if he was, I was kind of a dick. It didn't mean to be.
I got one little thing I'll ask you before we wrap it up here. I'll never forget the night Jason Gillum was still undefeated. He'd fought in Muncie, or he fought in Ohio, and Mottled fought that same night, and Mottled was beating Ron Fields down and ended up losing later in the fight or whatever. And we came back to somehow I got into the corner bar. I don't think I was of age, and I'll never forget you sitting there at the bar, and you looked over at me. You said, "You wrestle, don't you? You're a wrestler." I said, "Yep." You said, "How'd you get in here?" I said, "Oh, my buddy Model." You said, "It's a beautiful thing." We was drinking 7-Up Sprites and Crowns and peach schnapps.
That was my thing back in the day. I said, "Oh, it's a beautiful thing."
Yep, that's what you'd always say too. I'll never forget it. Well, got this. Go ahead. Sorry.
I remember that fight that he was winning that fight. I think he got tired. Model did.
Yep. And
listen, I used to hang out with those guys at Chaz Bowling's house. They would fight all the time against each other. I mean, I'm like in the yard going, "Why?" Like Model and I can't remember the other guy's name. Looked like Tank Abbott. Who?
There was Model. There was Wade Hamilton. There's
Wade Hamilton and Model got in a fight in the front yard of Chaz Bowling's house. I go, "Guys, why are you fighting, dude? What is going on?" I couldn't understand it. We're all a fight team, but got a lot of scuffles, against each other, this, that, and the other. What were the two young men? And these guys are great fighters. Now, look, I'm getting older. The two young lightweight guys that fought for us first. One owns a deer cutting company.
There was Marsh, Mike Holton, Kevin Marsh. Kevin Marsh. There was Chip Marsh, Kevin Marsh, Mike Holton.
It's Kevin Marsh, but who was the other guy who was about his weight? He lived in Knightstown.
That was Mikey Holton, Stump Holton.
Okay, two of the baddest motherfuckers I know. All right, so Holton and Marsh, dude, if you'd have watched them in their prime, we'd go to tournaments and they would just run clock on dudes. Just run clock. I love those two guys. I sent Holton to Hawaii, and the guy said,
Stephen Pauling.
What's that?
He fought Stephen Pauling.
Yeah.
No, he fought the Hawaiian dude. What was his name?
Stephen Pauling. That's who.
What's his nickname?
Oh God, you had to get me. I'm not sure, but he was a long story short, a stud. Stephen Pauling beat Jens Pulver. That's how Pauling was real big but he fought Pauling, who would beat Jens Pulver later on, but that was their champion over there.
Well,
But
they
go
gave
ahead.
him no chance, Holtman, over to Hawaii. I didn't go. Chaz Bowling calls me and says, hey, the fight's over, but they didn't give our $500 show money. And I said, dude, that guy promised me the $500 show money. But Holtum put on a great performance.
Yeah,
And
he did.
he had that guy beat. But that guy was a legendary. I didn't think that was his name. It was some kind of Hawaiian name. But I tell you this, they thought I was sending them a dud, and they were fighting for their lives. Holtum and Marsh, I'm telling you, at that time, were great fighters. And
sure.
they would fight anybody at the drop of a dime. Even like when I sent Holtum to Hawaii, they couldn't believe they got out of that fight and won. I think Holtum might have got a little tired or something.
Yeah, he got armbarred because he got struck. Remember, he hurt Pauling, and Pauling ended up he took Pauling down and got armbarred, and that's what everybody freaked out because Pauling's a striker, and like that was his big thing.
And they didn't want to pay him. They did not want to pay him.
He dog walked him because Mikey had fought Lytle like not long before that and was giving up a few pounds. He'd fought Lytle.
Who's the guy from Anderson that went to prison? The black guy.
Antoine Skinner, Little Rampage.
So Antoine Skinner. So I go to Iowa with him. Me and all the Wolfpack go to Iowa. He fights, and I can't remember his name for the title, and they fight to a draw. Who is it?
It was either Brad Gum or Phil Johns.
Phil Johns. They fight for the title. It's a draw. Phil Johns gives him the trophy. I go, we don't want the trophy. You guys are splitting the money. He wouldn't do it. He wanted to give him the trophy and keep the win money. So we're back so the cops called on us. We're back in the kitchen, and this girl starts talking shit about martial arts. I go, listen, you got nothing to say about martial arts. You don't jack shit about martial arts. I go, you better pay him his money. I go, that's a split. When there's a draw, you split the money. Well, instead of having it out with us, they called the cops. Cops came, and 6, 7 cops, and we're trying to explain the situation. And I kind of back off because I'm like, look, I'm a fighter, and I know that you split that money. And so Chaz and them were trying to talk to the cops, but they called the cops on us. But that's the only time I'm really pissed off about a fighter and his actions. He should have split that money. They fought to a draw. The win money, lose money, all it goes into one, and you split it. They wanted to give him a trophy. Like, I don't want that fucking trophy. I don't pay the bills.
Yeah. The guy he's referring to, Antoine Skinner, he could bench 420 as a 55er. They call him Little Rampage because he knocked people out slamming them. Like, he fought later on, he ended up fighting freaking Joe Lozon in Boston, and they ended up making a rule where he couldn't slam. And it was he had at one time Antoine Skinner was the top 15 155er on the planet. He was a stud.
He was.
Like, last thing I'll say before, because we got to get it wrapped up, he went over and fought in Zest against Katani. And Katani, they sent girls up to his room and had him drink and everything. Because he was the champ, and then he ended up getting leg locked. And Katani at the time was 9-0, and Antoine was undefeated. But all right, we're gonna have to wrap it up. Is last minute, last anybody want to give any thanks? You want to tell any of your sponsors, your family, tell anybody you love them, Iron Bear?
I'll tell you this: Dan Payne, Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University for getting me started in fighting. Jason Gotzi for always training with me. Chris Lytle for always supporting me. And Phyllis Lee for managing me. She's passed away. And Tom Erickson for always being a great friend to me. And that's why I'm here. Me and Jacob Boo. That's why we're here in Orlando to put him in the Hall of Fame tomorrow. And I've had a great life, a great career, and I wouldn't change it for anything. There's no way I could change it. I just fell into the right place, always at the right time. So thankful to God for that he saw me through all that. And here I am.
Well, I want to thank you, Gary, for leading the way for young fighters like myself when I was young, and always being there to answer questions. And you was always a real personable guy, and always was willing to help the next guy out. And everybody for being such a known as a tough, rough guy, you always have a kind soul, and I can really appreciate that. And I want to tell everybody Happy Father's Day out there. And Connor, do you got anything you want to say?
I just want to say thank you for coming on. It was a pleasure talking to you. I know we should have you on again for sure because you got stories on stories on stories, and I'm down to hear that.
Hey, listen, you can ask me about any fight. I've either trained with them, rolled with them. I mean, I rolled with Tito Ortiz and who's the other heavyweight champ or light heavyweight champ of the world?
That was Tito Ortiz, Rampage, and Liddell.
Chuck Liddell. I was in Iowa with him And that's back when they liked each other. I got to train in the ring with them and go live with them. And that was UFC 18. But I'll tell you this, it is Father's Day. I want to say this about Father's Day. We all get busy and we get caught up in our careers and stuff, but we have to take time to see our kids through this journey. And we have to make time for that. And my son, Colton Myers, and my daughter, Kaylee Myers, and Anita Criswell, I hope I did them well like my father did me. And my father's 90 years old, and I wish him a happy Father's Day. He's been a great grandpa and a great father to me. Made me who I am.
Man. Well, that's beautiful, beautiful words. I can't follow that up with anything, but thanks for having us. Been a great episode. Looking forward to it. And everybody out there, thank you for tuning in. This has been Mac the Mullet, Gary Iron Bear Myers, and Connor McKenna. See you later. Over and out.
All right. Peace.